Bernie Sanders has wrote a fairly scary piece for, I think it was for Reader-Supported News, their website. It may have been on his on Bernie's Facebook page or his website also. But it was under the headline, "A Threat to Everything This Country Stands For," and you should read it. If you go to Reader-Supported News or Bernie Sanders, I'm sure it's still there. But in that piece that he wrote, he warned that the orange ape is putting together a real chance for what could only be termed a nightmare scenario, in which the ape misleads the American people over the results of this election coming up, which has already begun, or worse, refuses to leave voluntarily if he's voted out. So Sanders is raising this alarm, and things that you and I and a lot of people have been talking about. And he's mobilizing his army of supporters to be aware of just how dangerous a game this filthy bastard Donald Trump is playing. I guess we could call it a game in the most destructive sense. He said in an interview with Politico, and it was an email he sent to his email list on Friday. But Sanders said this, quote, "What we have got to do in the next 2 months is to alert the American people about what the nightmarish scenario might look like in order to prepare them for that possibility and talk about what we do if that happens," end quote. Which is kind of like what we've been saying on this program all along. Prepare and remember the 3rd of November, or in this case, the 4th. Sanders is suggesting that too many news organizations, social media companies, lawmakers, in addition to the broad American public, remain unaware of the way in which Trump is laying the groundwork for a devastating series of events that is heading our way. And it's coming. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what people who are not willing to confront what's heading our way. I don't know what it would take to make them see the freight train heading our way at 90 miles an hour. I mean, it's happening. Jim Quealy, writing at Common Dreams, he's a staff writer for Common Dreams, pointed this all out on Saturday. Anyway, Sanders also in his email sent to millions of his supporters on Friday, this past Friday, said, quote, "Trump is now using his lies and misinformation to sow confusion and chaos in the election process and undermine American democracy. In other words," Sanders goes on, "he does not intend to accept the results of the election if he loses and leave office voluntarily. This is not a so-called constitutional crisis. This is a threat to everything this country stands for," end quote. Yes, it is. And for the people who listen to this podcast, I hope, I really do hope that you're prepared for what's coming our way. I mean, there's no way to prepare for what's coming our way down to the last detail, because the son of a bitch, Donald Trump, is so psychotic that anything might happen. But I'll tell you this, in the back of my mind, I have a feeling that the United States military will stop this son of a bitch from trying to declare martial law, from refusing to leave the White House if he's defeated. I'm counting like I've never counted before on the military, the upper levels of the U.S. military, the the generals, the admirals, because they understand, first of all, the chain of command, but they also understand at the top of the chain of command is a psychotic son of a bitch who cares nothing about anything but absolute power. So I'm hoping that the flag rank members of the upper military will respond when we need them. Respond to their oath to defend, protect the U.S. Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, which is what Trump is. And these QAnon son of a bitches, I'll get to them in a minute if there's time. Speaking with Politico earlier in the day, Jim reports, Sanders said one crucial thing to be done immediately is to educate people. He said, quote, Sanders said, quote, what we've got to do in the next 2 months is to alert the American people about what that nightmare scenario might look like in order to prepare them for that possibility and talk about what to do, what we do, if or when it happens. And if you remember last week, Trump was accused by legal experts of committing an outright felony when he publicly called on voters in North Carolina, remember that, to vote twice in the November federal elections, so that he could have the whole goddamn thing declared inoperative. And for Sanders, that comment should be seen as just part of this larger ploy by the Orange Ape and the Republican Party to cause doubt about the integrity of the election, and also at the same time creating conditions to actually steal power by refusing to concede when Trump is defeated by Joe Biden. In his email, Sanders also said this, quote, at a time when he is behind in almost every national poll and in most battleground state polls, Trump recently stated, quote, the only way they can take this election away from us is if this is a rigged election, end quote. So, Sanders says, think about what that means. What he is saying is that if he wins the election, that's great, but if he loses, it's rigged. And if it's rigged, then he's not leaving office. Heads I win, tails you lose, end quote, Sanders. In his Common Dreams reported last week, Sanders is not alone in these concerns. I mean, you have them too, and so do I, and so do a lot of people in this country. But Jim writes, after researchers at the analysis firm Hawkfish presented a scenario in which Trump could try to prematurely claim an election night victory on November 3rd based on incomplete results, a so-called red mirage win, that's what they're calling it, a red mirage win based on same-day voting by Republicans, but leaving out millions of yet-to-be-counted mail-in ballots by Democrats in key battleground states. Trump brought this up. It was clear to many that both the Orange Ape and his crazed supporters will create untold havoc if not adequately confronted. This is one time, my fellow Americans, when you and I better not, under any circumstances, when this happens, if it happens, just sit back and expect the courts to sort this out. Or just sit back and say, well, shit, somehow this will be upended and we'll live in reality again. No, no, no. If this happens, the only way it's going to be stopped. I mean, look around the world. Look at what people have to do to remove tyrants from office. Yes, there will be gunfire. Yes, there will be blood in the streets. Yes, there will be death. I hope it's not yours. I hope it's not mine. Frankly, I hope it's not anybody's. But if this son of a bitch refuses to accept the constraints of the U.S. Constitution, then what choice do we have? Huh? What choice? There is no choice. There is a direct course of action. That's it. And that's for us, millions of us, tens of millions, to take to the streets and bring this country to a halt. I know, we have COVID-19. I understand this. And so does Trump. So does that son of a bitch. He understands that perfectly. But we're going to have to do it. Mask up, glove up, and anything else up that you have to do. But that's what it's going to take. Brian Thomas, a spokesperson for Stand Up America, after the ape invoked that so-called red mirage scenario last Wednesday. But Brian Thomas, inversing the implications by saying it would be Democrats rigging the delayed results against him, Ryan Thomas said, quote, "The fact is that we will not get results on election night. It may take days or even longer for states to count the unprecedented number of mail-in ballots needed to conduct a safe election after Trump botched the response to the coronavirus." End quote. And the election results, Ryan added, are not only damaging to the foundation of our democracy if they're tampered with like this, but it's wholly un-American. Unquote. Well, I just don't see anymore where the terms something's American or un-American have any weight. I mean, it's not American or un-American any longer. This is democratic or totalitarian. It's either the kind of freedom that our Constitution guarantees everybody, although not everybody has participated. It's either that or it's a dictatorship of this filthy, filthy pig, Donald Trump. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. You have your choice. You can listen to The Ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.